This is an appendix video for a video I've not done yet, focusing on Phineas the End, or Marvel Universe the End, or simply Marvel the End. This is a 6-issue story written and drawn by Jim Starlin. It was released in 2003. I was going to review this series, but my camera's knackered. But also I spent 2 or 3 weeks just gathering data for this appendix to it. There is a big debate about whether or not this series and this story is canon. If it's in continuity, if it really happened, there are 2 ways of thinking about this series. There is the right way, that this series is canon, it is 100% canon, and then there's the wrong way, aka the Tom Brevoort way. Tom Brevoort, the executive editor of Marvel, he has insisted for years that it is not canon. On his hate-filled little blog that he doesn't update anymore, he would always reject any reasonable people pointing out that he might be wrong. He is the only reason people would consider this series not to be canon, that it takes place on some alternate reality called Earth 4321 instead of the prime Earth 616. And oh, look here he is with fellow editor Gordon B. Shite mocking people for pointing out that there is plenty of evidence for this series being canon. And in this video I'm going to explain in detail how it is canon. So look forward to about 15 minutes into this video when an idiot talks about time travel. This is going to be a long video here, and there will be spoilers for this series. I recommend you go and read this story. It's kind of like Jim Starman's underrated magnum opus. It's very different to Infinity Gauntlets. He barely really bothers with all the superhero stuff or the big crossover event sort of stuff. This is a story about Phineas, as well as loosely Mr. Doom. It is entirely Phineas's story though, really good. I quickly need to succinctly gun out the plot of Phineas the End. There is a baddie, Fat Oreo. He comes to Earth and he kills most of the heroes. He has got loads of god powers from the Source. But it's okay because Phineas and Mr. Doom, they beat him. Mr. Doom, he goes back in time. And Phineas, he nicks Fat Oreo's powers. So the baddie, he is defeated. But what's that? Phineas, well, he has got Fat Oreo's powers now. And he's the baddie. Then he destroys the universe and then recreates it. There are other bits as well with the Defenders and Thor and the other gods, but you'll probably get more context later on. This series is canon though, it definitely is. Firstly, one of Tom Brevoort's main assertions is that the entire The End line of books, a series of books Marvel did for several key titles and characters, he says that none of them were ever intended to be canon. And that may be true of all the others. The others clearly set themselves apart from continuity. Usually they're set in a future and star older versions of the characters we know. But with Phineas the End, it is set bang on in the then current day of the Marvel Universe. Not only that, Jim Starman, he reflects continuity from other concurrent books, such as Thor being King of Fairyland, and prior to this series, Jim Starman wrote a definitely in continuity series called Infinity Abbeys, which ended with a teaser for this next chapter in the story, with Phineas searching for the source, which is obviously the plot of Phineas the End. Jim Starman, he has always been of the mindset that this story is canon. This was written as canon. But now let's start off with the salient fact that plenty of other comics and other books have confirmed that the end and the events that took place definitely happened. So let's just get into the outright confirmations. Firstly, let's go into that Infinity Abbeys again and look closely at that vague teaser. These are revelations I fear Phineas will never appreciate. Darker motives spur on the new god. For him, rebuilding his resources is of paramount importance. When my mind was linked with his, I felt just how close Phineas is to gaining that new secret prize he craves. So the hunt resumes and ebon passions burn. Yes, I believe the new god will soon unearth his latest substitute for happiness and contentment. And once again he will find it unfulfilling and wanting. On that day let the universe tremble, for then someone will surely have to pay for that bitter disappointment. That is a pretty astute summation of what does happen in the end. But if you remove the end from canon, then this build-up and this tease here is completely go nowhere, and it never meant anything. Our first proper reference to the story in another comic is in Phineas, issue 1 by Jim Starman. It came out shortly after the end. Within the first few pages of it, Phineas recalls the events of the end. In fact, they form the majority of the motivation for Phineas's sudden change in mood. I searched out and acquired the ultimate in power, the source. This turned me into the supreme being of this reality, its unquestionable master, but it proved a task totally unsuitable to my temperament. The first day of my reign ended with me destroying the entire universe in a fit of pique. To restore it to being meant having to renounce the might I had so desperately striven to gain. Of course, you remember arriving just as I was in the middle of struggling with this dilemma. But the truth is my decision had been made even before your intrusion. Better death than to be saddled with mastery of a void. The mantle of supremacy was tossed aside. The universe was resurrected with no memory of its demise, and I faded to mere memory, or so I hoped the universe would assume. But your soul gem must have locked onto my spirit and tracked me here. Yes, I was always aware of your continued existence, but had no idea that you were in hiding. Not hiding as much as reconstituting. With my waning divine might, I restored my shattered armada and granted myself a number of other life-assuring wishes. Then I came here to contemplate the next act in this play I call my life. A character change? Yes, I gained omnipotence and found it wanting, Adam Watson. In Phineas number 2, we start off with Adam Watson recounting his own history and his relationship with Phineas, and it ends with references to the end. Adam Watson gans, I even happened upon Phineas during his brief stint as this actuality's supreme being, and witnessed him forsake that might to right a perilous astral imbalance in the universe. Presumably this image here of Phineas looking angry and Adam Watson in a bubble is meant to represent the end of the end. Later in the same issue, Phineas is faced with Galactus Man and he gans, mere weeks passed and a snap of my fingers would have handily dispatched Galactus Man. Obviously that is referring to when he was so powerful, when he had his source powers in the end. And then in Phineas number 4, Jim Starman still, we have got a sequence with Adam Watson and Warwick Davis, where Adam Watson is reflecting on the fact that Phineas has fixed the cosmic imbalance and now dead people have to stay dead. I'll be talking about that all bit later on. But here Adam Watson gans, no longer is resurrection a possibility for me. My next death will be an irreversible event. Jim Starman, he was kicked off the Phineas book. I did a video about that, I'll link to it down below. Tom Brevoort is again involved and again disrespectful to Jim Starman. But it's clear from Phineas number 1 that this was both written from the perspective that the end happened, and Tom Brevoort, he was editor, he never contested the references, despite being editor of this book. And I have my theories why, i.e. he doesn't really read the scripts and just stamps them, but that's getting away from the factual proof I am providing here. The next confirmation didn't come until 5 years later, in 2009, in For an Hercules Man Encyclopedia, which wasn't a Marvel Andy book, but it was a bit similar. And some of the stuff from this, it resurfaces in Andy books. But it was a different kind of book. It was covering the various pantheons of gods in the Marvel Universe. And a notable part of Phineas the End was when Thor and Liam Neeson from Clash of the Titans, they got together the High Council, which is like the leaders of all the gods. And then Fat Oreo, he killed most of them. Well, that's mostly all reflected here. We have got an entry here for the High Council, which covers the entire thing quite a bit. Another group of the High Council later met to discuss the actions of virtually omnipotent former Oreo, Fat Oreo, against humanity and contemplated summoning those of the Forgotten Realm. Horus, who was most familiar with Fat Oreo, used the Eye of Ra to spy on him, but Fat Oreo detected them and attacked, destroying all present except Thor and Liam Neeson, who managed to flee. Soon after, Phineas claimed Fat Oreo's power source, the Source, and used it to retroactively prevent all of Fat Oreo's actions. The Eye Council joined together with a multitude of mortals and cosmic beings from the rest of the universe to oppose the supremely powerful Thanius, who easily erased every being from the universe before being convinced by Adam Watson to sacrifice himself to restore the universe to its previous state. Some of the other profiles mention it, like we've got the Malin gods and the Hindu gods, but they're more off confirmations that I'll get onto later. We also have an entry on the Egyptian gods that doesn't mention it, but again, I'll be coming back to this later on. Next one is 2010 in Thanius Sourcebook, which was a one-shot. It's like one of them primer books for new readers to get caught up to speed and jump onto a new storyline. In this case, it was preceding the Thanius Initiative. Really good story, I recommend that as well. So this source book, it went over Thanius's history. This image at the top of Thanius, this is from Marvel DN, it's from issue 5. And then we have a whole chunk about the events of the end. The Fat Oreo returned from deep space and conquers Earth, empowered by the celestial source. Secretly finding the source, Thanius claimed its power for himself, went back in time and prevented Fat Oreo from becoming empowered. No longer feeling unworthy and now possessing ultimate power, the cosmic powers of the universe attacked Thanius, who accidentally destroyed the universe in a burst of anger. However, Thanius recreated the universe, restoring his own cosmic armada while doing so. And then after that, on the next page, we acknowledge that those events were the impetus for the Thanius solo series, with, after wielding supreme power once more, Thanius sought to quiet his internal chaos. Next, we jump to 2014, and Jim Starman comes back to Marvel to work on graphic novels and is paired with the same editor, Tom Brevoort. In his first graphic novel in the Thanius is Perfect series, we have got a whole plot point that stems out of the events of the end. We see Fat Oreo and both Thanius and Adam Watson remember this story. In recent months, everything in the universe seems to me slightly out of balance, perhaps incomplete, especially my own self. Could you be more precise as to when you first felt this discomfort? Actually, it began quite some time ago. Fat Oreo? Yes, it was back when I was thwarting his pathetic ambitions that I first began to notice this disturbance. Then it was so subtle and unease that I failed to fully appreciate it, which is understandable. I was in the process of gaining unimaginable power, again becoming omnipotent, in effect transforming into a supreme being, Universal reaction to this acquisition was jealousy. Powerful forces joined together to challenge my unexpected omnipotence. They had no notion that what I actually strove to achieve was a writing of a cosmic aberration that then threatened all reality. So naturally you responded in your usual level-headed fashion. When reaching a certain plane of enlightenment and power, it becomes rather difficult to tolerate the interference of lesser beings. Yes, I admit it, I overreacted and destroyed everything in the universe. Except for me. I suppose I thought a witness was required. Someone had to say that I was actually fixing reality. And afterwards you willingly relinquished all that staggering might you had acquired. Why? Most likely because of dissatisfaction. For me, the quest has always proven much more invigorating than the actual attainment of any end goal. But there was also the unexpected appearance by Lady Death. I well remember that kiss, as do I. I then realised that, without meaning to, I had at last earned Lady Death's love and respect, a prize I had long and hopelessly sought. What more was there to live for? I surrendered my might and self to the universe. It felt good relinquishing my hold on this life. I truly believed my journey had ended, but it was a death that did not last. No, and after that I truly began to act oddly. This is like a humongous plot point of this graphic novel. I've just read 4 pages of the thing here. That's how relevant it is. And as the first in a trilogy of graphic novels, you could argue that the entire trilogy actually relies on those events from the end as having happened to motivate Phineas and Adam Watson at the start of their crazy cosmic adventure. Now we get onto the weird stuff, and that is the off confirmations. The Marvel Andy books, they are filled with these. I have been through them all and I'm counting them all as off confirmations because there is no consistency. Some say it didn't happen, some say it did, some didn't mention it at all. Others gone out of their way to try and say that those events happened, but they happened on Earth 4321. But let's just get into it. I've looked through every Andy book from 2004 until 2013 when Alex Alfonso asked the line. The first reference I could find to the story was in the Marvel Teams Andy book from 2005. They have got an entry for the Defenders and it reflects the events of the end with no caveats or annotations. Although often at each other's throats, the Defenders continue to band together when dark forces conspire to threaten reality, such as when Doctor Strange, Hulk, Seaman and Silver Surfman aided the mad new god Thanius in his quest to obtain the source from beyond the source wall. That is the earliest acknowledgement I can find in a Andy book. It even lists the series in the back of the book under significant issues for the Defenders. They stopped doing these significant issues parts pretty much after this volume. Alphabetically in the A to Z's, the first encounter you will have with this story is that they have a profile for Fat Oreo. And this is really frustrating because we are given confirmation but also given denial. You can see the writers of the Andy book, they're struggling to acquiesce Tom Brevoort's insistence that the story is not canon, with the fact that the events have been mentioned in canon stories since. So Fat Oreo's profile details everything that happened in the end, but it stipulates right at the start that it actually all happened on Earth 4321, but then we have got this note right at the end. It says, at least some of Earth 4321's events may have occurred in the Earth 616 reality, but the extent of this duplication remains unrevealed. You see, the problem is these events did have to happen on Earth 616 because they were mentioned again on Earth 616. So they're saying it's not canon with the profile, but then saying it probably is with the little note. Sorry about some of these images. My Andy books are mostly physical copies, so I had to photograph most of them. On other profiles, we get it mentioned without any note whatsoever. For example, the updated Defenders entry details the events without anything to suggest that it is not canon. Whereas, like, the entry for Lady Death, who appears prominently at the climax of the series, it doesn't even mention the story. It'd be easy to make the excuse that profiles like the Avengers entry or Cycle Clone from the Thunderbals, they are not acknowledging this story because they either have far too much to cover or that their involvement was minimal. But what you will find is a really inconsistent approach. I've actually gone through the entire A to Z and virtually every handbook that has come out since the end came out to properly look for which profiles acknowledged and which ones didn't. I am using the A to Zs from 2006, which was a 12-issue series. I am using the 2007 5-issue mini-series, the 2008 hardcover printings, the 2011 soft covers that ended at volume 5, as well as a bunch of one-shots. And it really is totally inconsistent about whether or not the story is acknowledged. Every time I thought that I worked it out, something came along to disprove it. At first, I assumed it would just be the main characters of the story who have it detailed, but there are characters who appear in like a single panel of the story who get it mentioned in their profile. Then I thought maybe it seemed entries were only referring to the funniest part of the story and they were not acknowledging the Fat Oreo part because that is supposed to be 4321. But no, some entries, they mention that part as well. Anyway, this bit might be really boring, but my god, I put the effort in, so you're gonna sit through it. Already covered Fat Oreo, won't bother with that again. Adam Watson and Gonorrhea's adopted space child. She has got a profile and there's no mention of her very minor appearance at the start of the end, despite it being her only appearance outside of her original story. The entry for the Celestials mentions it. When the new god Phanius obtained vast cosmic power from behind the source wall, the Celestials stood alongside the many abstract cosmic powers and heroes of several worlds against him, but their power was insufficient. Phanius ultimately destroyed the universe, only to recreate it and neutralize his own magnified powers. Then we have got the Eye Council. This mentions it as well. It's the same basic write-up as in the encyclopedia from before, but we do have some slight tweaks. Firstly, it name checks all the gods who were part of that iteration of the Eye Council. We also have an image here. This comes straight from the series. This is Jim Starman art. This is from that story. If it wasn't canon, then why are they showing an image of an alternate reality version of the Eye Council? There are appendixes at the back of every volume. Volume 2 lists alternate realities. We have Earth 4321 listed. Dark Lord, whose last ever appearance was in the end. His profile doesn't mention it, despite there being an odd amount of space left over to mention it in his biography. There is a few instances of this. If you go back, it's the same with the Space Child. There's a suspicious gap which would be the exact space where this story would be mentioned. And since both of these characters never appeared again and that was their last appearance, it should warrant some mentioning. Lady Death, I've mentioned already, doesn't mention the events. Really odd. She was integral to the ending. Her kissing Phanius, it was even mentioned in that graphic novel. It was like what inspired him to relinquish his power and recreate the universe. Defenders, already mentioned this as well. Their profile discusses it and it has got a whole paragraph. The Defenders began drifting apart again, reuniting only sporadically. The 4 senior members engaged in a series of struggles over the limitless power of the Source, first teaming with Phanius and Captain Marbles, the real one, genis-vell, to wrest the Source's power from the cosmic tyrant Fat Oreo, and later fighting alongside Earth's other superheroes and the universe's cosmic entities in an attempt to prevent Phanius from abusing the Source's power. In the end, Phanius absorbed all existence and recreated it so that the Source-related Christmases never happened. Mr. Doom, who is very important to the story and actually incredibly essential to the very idea that it was another reality, he has no mention of the events at all. Ridiculous. Drom, the backwards man, he first appeared in an issue of Spider-Man Team Up and then never appeared again, except for a single panel in the end, when Fat Oreo kidnapped him alongside a bunch of other time travellers. Despite that being the character's only other appearance, and surely that is notable, there's no mention of it. Aaron, the living planet, who only appears in the background of a single image. His profile mentions him among the beings who assaulted Phineas while he possessed the Source. iPod, another cosmic character, her profile says recently she was among the cosmic entities and heroes who opposed Phineas when he obtained the power of the Source. We've got the new gods, and their profile also mentions the events. Many of the new gods of New Genesis also opposed Phineas when he possessed the power beyond the Source wall. Eternity, another clear-cut case of a profile mentioning it. When Phineas claimed the power of the Source, again becoming a force to be reckoned with, Eternity opposed Phineas once more. Phineas destroyed all of reality, but finally repented and restored all that he had destroyed. Then we have got the annoying Christian, as Kurt Busey calls her. She was one of the Avengers who appeared in like 3 or 4 panels of the story, didn't have a line of dialogue, and yet her profile still finds time to mention her fighting both Fat Oreo and Phineas. Samuel L. Jackson, who has a very minor role, he's in like 1 panel. He's reacting to the Avengers being killed. And his very thorough profile again manages to find time to mention him running SHIELD during Christmases, including Fat Oreo. Galactus Man, his mentions it and how it leads into the Phineas series. After again opposing Phineas, then powered by the Source, Galactus Man fell prey to a near-fatal deception. Gonorrhea, a Jim Starman character, surprisingly, there is no mention of it. It just skips over it. Legion of Superheroes, they appear during the big fight at the end with Phineas, and also earlier on in the story when Fat Oreo has destroyed their shite-ass empire. But no mention of it anywhere in their profile. We got Minstrel, the racist black and white minstrel. You'd think with him being another one of the big cosmic characters, he would be a shoo-in, but his profile don't mention it at all. Infinity, on the other hand, her entry covers it. When Phineas used the Source to destroy all reality, including infinity, Adam Watson convinced him to recreate the universe and restore all the abstracts. Kronos, who shows up among the captured time travellers and later on fighting Phineas, his profile doesn't mention it. Quiznos, this was her last ever appearance. She hasn't appeared since, and she's been in a film. Her profile does include the story. Quiznos restored to her classic form, fought against the Source-powered Phineas. Cameron Crowe, he was among the world leaders who Fat Oreo abducted in issue 1, and then later on he shows up to fight Phineas. His profile mentions the latter, but not the former. Cameron Crowe was last seen among the many champions who gathered to combat the threat of Phineas, the mad new god, who destroyed and recreated the universe with the power of the Source. Flaming Lightning, again he has a background role, no dialogue, and his profile, interestingly, only mentions the start with Fat Oreo, and not him being there to fight Phineas later on. The tribunal, straight away, worth noting that his profile picture, it comes straight from this series, it comes from issue 5. His profile mentions it, but it's at a bit of a page break, so it's kind of annoying to show. When Phineas gained vast power again through the source, the tribunal joined champions from across reality to challenge him. Phineas destroyed all that existed with his power, but subsequently had a change of heart and restored reality. Ridding himself of his power, the recreated universe lacked the terminal flaw which Phineas had sought to cure. Order and chaos, again we got another confirmation. Most recently, chaos and order again opposed Phineas when he obtained the omnipotent source, although they were again unsuccessful in their efforts to defeat him. Swamp Thing, his write-up says that he opposed a universe menacing virtually omnipotent Phineas, enhanced by the power beyond the source wall. Then we have got Satan. His profile probably has the longest entry, and yep, it does mention him being there. Satan joined the cosmic beings gathered against Phineas after he obtained the supremely powerful source. Phineas unwittingly consumed the entire universe, but then sacrificed his new power to restore reality and its inhabitants to status quo, or status quo, depending how you say it. Miss Love, she has a profile and a pretty chunky bit telling the story. Miss Love again battled Phineas alongside a court of cosmic powerhouses when he absorbed the source. She was defeated when Phineas absorbed the entire universe into himself, but recreated when he redrew the universe. Master Hater, who is like Miss Love's other half, he only gets half a page profile and it still mentions it. Master Hater again joined the other cosmic entities in assaulting Phineas after he had absorbed the source. Master Hater was defeated when Phineas absorbed the entire universe into himself, but was recreated when Phineas redrew the universe. Also, the art for his profile comes straight from issue 4. Moon Garden, beautiful, beautiful Moon Garden. Her profile mentions it, but it's a bit of an oddity. It says she also briefly aided other heroes against the all-powerful Fat Oreo, though those events were diverged to reality 4321 after Phineas travelled back in time and prevented Fat Oreo's empowerment. What's weird is, well, there's two things. Firstly, it is out of order. It mentions the end here, and then underneath that, the next paragraph is covering the events of Infinity Abbeys, which preceded the end. Then it also says that she was there, presumably with the Avengers, opposing Fat Oreo, and she actually wasn't. She didn't appear at all in that part of the story. And then it actually doesn't mention that she was there later on to fight Phineas. Just very weird. Also, it says all that shite about Earth 4321, but we'll be talking about Earth 4321 later on. Then something interesting happened. I got to volume 9 and they just stopped mentioning it at all. Even characters who were like made out of the story, like Captain Marbles, the real one, Genis-vell, or Silver Surfman, or Thor, or Warwick Davis, or cosmic characters who were there for the enormous fight, like the big baby in a nappy, or Annette Bening from that feminist film, or even the Avengers who didn't appear that much otherwise, like Kazar, or Captain Stingray, or Captain Marbles, the real one, Monica Rambeau. And it makes a lot of sense to assume that at this point Tom Brevoort put a crackdown on mentioning the end, but that isn't the case because there's still 4 more profiles that mention it. Firstly, we have got Santa Claus. His profile guns, Santa once again allied with the universe's great powers when Phineas acquired the universe-threatening power of the Source, though the subsequent destruction and recreation of the universe removed Santa's memory of this battle. Also, much like Moongarden's entry, events are out of order because after that it mentions a story from 2000. Then we have got the Time Twisters. They were among the captured time travellers, and their profile is the only one of any of those time travellers we saw that actually mentions this story. The Time Twisters were later seen as prisoners of the virtually omnipotent Fat Oreo. If these were not a chronologically earlier incarnation, it may indicate they have recovered from their seeming death. Alternatively, this could have been the disguised timekeepers whose fate following the Twisters' apparent demise is unrevealed. Phineas, it would be an enormous insult and really cripple the argument that this story is canon if his entry didn't mention it, but it does, it gets a whole paragraph. When Fat Oreo returned from deep space to conquer Earth, Phineas recruited the Defenders and Captain Marbles, the real one, genis-vell, to oppose him. Not daring to confront Fat Oreo directly, Phineas instead led the team to Fat Oreo's power source, the Source, located behind the Source Wall. Attacked by the Source Wall, Phineas dove into the Source and claimed its power, then travelled back in time and prevented Fat Oreo from becoming empowered, diverging that to reality 4, 3, 2, 1. Armed with the ultimate power and no longer hampered by his feelings of unworthiness, Phineas investigated the universe in detail, discovering the truth of what Lady Death had long ago told him. An existing imbalance between life and death would eventually destroy the universe. However, the great cosmic powers attacked Phineas, and he accidentally annihilated the universe in a burst of anger, absorbing it into himself, leaving only himself and Adam Watson, who had been outside reality. Unsure if he could revive the universe and survive, Phineas hesitated until receiving a visit from Lady Death. Phineas recreated the universe, removing the cancerous imbalance that allowed beings to move easily between life and death. However, this recreated universe no longer had the Source or the Source Wall, and Phineas also restored his own cosmic armada and made a number of other unrevealed life-assuring changes. This entry also points out this story as the motivation for his solo series, with the next paragraph beginning, having held ultimate power. Then we have got Adam Watson. Not only does he get a bit on the story, but this art here, this is straight from the comic. Soon after, Mad 18th Dynasty Oreo, Fat Oreo, abducted during his reign by the Source Wall, returned to Earth, possessed of ultimate power bestowed on him by the Source, and took over the world. Phineas stole the Source's power, eradicating Fat Oreo and the Source Wall from existence in the past. Diverging Fat Oreo's conquering Earth to reality 4321, learning that reality was suffering a terminal illness due to barrier breakdowns between life and death. Phineas attempted repair that instead led to the universe's destruction when he unleashed his new full power against the cosmic entities opposing him. Having finished the tutoring of his adopted space child, Adam Watson emerged from the outside the universe pavilion and persuaded Phineas to sacrifice his power to remake reality, bolstering the life-death barriers. Also, his entry from 2006, the main profile image is that picture from The End, from issue 6 of The End. Liam Neeson now from Clash of the Titans. Even though both Thor and Hercules Man, their profiles didn't mention it, Liam Neeson's does. Liam Neeson later attended a High Council meeting regarding the Source-empowered Fat Oreo. Liam Neeson and Thor narrowly survived Fat Oreo's assault, though Phineas went back in time and prevented Fat Oreo's empowerment, diverging those events to reality 4321. Retaining memories of the attack, Thor and Liam Neeson assisted the cosmic beings against Phineas, who ultimately destroyed then reformed all reality, sacrificing his new power to do the latter. This one is also interesting because they even acknowledged why the divergence idea doesn't work. Thor and Liam Neeson, they retain their memories. They still remember Fat Oreo and they're in the same place they were before the time travel. Then we get to the final volume of the art covers, and this one has a bunch of bonus entries, a bunch of extras, and loads of them mention it. Part of that is because some of the content is repurposed from that Thor and Hercules Man encyclopedia. We got the Malin gods and the Hindu gods, their entries, which are straight from that encyclopedia. They mention it. Here it says, when the Egyptian Fat Oreo threatened reality with the vastly powerful power of the Source, Vishnu was among the gods assembled to address the threat. Phineas later used the Source to prevent Fat Oreo's empowerment, diverging these events to reality 4321. Then we have got the Egyptian gods. We get a sizable mention here, and this wasn't actually in the Thor and Hercules Man encyclopedia. It didn't mention the story in their entry in that, but it's written up here. Horus later represented the Egyptian gods at the High Council to address the mad Fat Oreo, who had been rendered nearly omnipotent by the Source. Horus used the mystic Eye of Ra to observe Fat Oreo, who detected them and destroyed Horus and most others. However, Phineas subsequently obtained the source, travelled back in time and prevented Fat Oreo from gaining its power, diverging these events to reality 4321. In reality 616, Fat Oreo was slain by time-travelling Mr. Doom. Also worth noting is that the image is from the encyclopedia. Horus, he is depicted how he appeared in the end, as opposed to how he normally looks. And fittingly enough, there is how he normally looks. This Horus's profile, Horus, he got a profile in that encyclopedia as well, but again, it didn't mention the end, whereas this profile does. However, the write-up here is identical to what we just saw on the Egyptian gods entry, and that is very lazy. Also, this image here, this is from the series. It's a cropped version of that same image that is in the High Council entry. And the only other entry worth mentioning is from Marvel Atlas. There's a profile about Egypt, and it mentions among its domestic superhumans, Fat Oreo. And if you're going with the whole alternate reality shite, then Fat Oreo, he isn't a domestic superhuman. He's the opposite of domestic. He comes from another Egypt entirely. I have tried to withhold any counter arguments to the Andy books talking about Earth 4321 or the divergent reality or whatever, because now we're going to talk about how or why this story might be perceived as non-canon. First, we have got the abrupt death of pretty much 98% of Marvel's major characters. Now, if that was true of the end of the story, obviously it's not canon, but it's just like Infinity Gauntlets. In Infinity Gauntlets, Phineas, he kills all the heroes who try to fight him, and he kills off the universe. But this story, like that, it hits the big reset button. Jim Starlin stories tend to hit the reset button at the end. The end ends with Phineas sacrificing himself and seeming to cease to exist, when obviously he showed up again. But if you're going with that mindset, you're also ignoring that his next appearance is in Phineas number 1. It refers to the end. In fact, both Phineas number 1 and the graphic novel acknowledge him coming back to life. If we go back, this is Phineas number 1. It explains why he's not dead. He relinquished the power, but with the last of it, he ensured that he would remain. And then there's the whole Phineas fixing the universe and removing the imbalance between life and death, and people coming back from the dead. And Tom Brevoort, he has said that obviously doesn't count because loads of characters still keep coming back to life. But that's a very simplified way to discount the story. Another way to look at it is that the fatal flaw that Phineas perceived resurfaced even after his attempts to remove it. I think it was his profile, it described it as cancerous. And well, cancer can spread, cancer can come back. Treating cancer does not automatically eliminate it entirely. But I think, as most of the handy books show, the aspect that seems to confuse people is the time travel part of the plot. The problem being that it doesn't follow what Marky Mark Griswold established as the Marvel rules of time travel. Mind you, I will say, look who edited this book again. Oh, it was Tom Brevoort, who insists it isn't canon. And loads of the stories that he has edited didn't follow these rules either, and they all considered canon still. But no, the problem with this time travel is it is really complicated actually. There's one bit from an Andy book I've reserved showing until now. This is the appendix to volume 12, I think it was. It has got time travel, it says how time travel generally works. kind of like the Marky Mark rules, and we've even got a little paragraph all about the end. When Phineas usurped the power of the source wall, he travelled back in time to prevent Fat Oreo from acquiring its power, diverging the reality in which Fat Oreo conquered Earth to reality 4321. When Phineas subsequently used the source's power to obliterate the universe and all its cosmic powers, and then restore the universe as it was before, this would similarly appear to be pure reality manipulation. This appears to be the case with most situations involving universal obliteration and recreation. Now, you might be thinking that I'm just blindly ignoring the clear idea presented that Phineas, he went back in time, he altered history by killing Fat Oreo, thus that made the Earth 616 we know. That is the compromise that the Andy books propose, but it's not true. For starters, once Phineas, he goes back in time, well, after that he's still around. That would mean Phineas in this story is from Earth 4321, as opposed to being from Earth 616. The Phineas who goes back in time, he has to continue to exist. So, to simplify it down, the idea that we start off in Earth 4321, it doesn't work because we stay with the Phineas from that world that Fat Oreo takes over. So after Fat Oreo is dealt with and we supposedly diverge to Earth 616, well, the Phineas, it would still be Earth 4321 Phineas. Then Earth 4321, the idea that Phineas diverged Earth 4321 to Earth 616, it's also ignoring the other time travel, which is Mr. Doom going back in time, and also Fat Oreo going back in time. I'll come on to that in a few minutes. Another thing to remember is after Phineas has gone back in time and removed Fat Oreo, we come back to the present. And now we have got Earth 6164 and Liam Neeson. And as it said on Liam Neeson's profile, 4 and Liam Neeson, they are in the exact same space they were before. They still have the memories of what they're now saying is Earth 4321, despite it supposedly not happening on their Earth. Right, now I'm going to talk about the intricacies of the time travel. I'll begin by highlighting the important part of the time travel bit of the Andy book. This would similarly appear to be pure reality manipulation. This appears to be the case with most situations involving universal obliteration and recreation. So in the end, we have got Mr. Doom. He goes back to the olden days. Back to when Fat Oreo, he was being abducted by aliens and given his mad cosmic god powers that he got from the source. Mr. Doom, he goes back to then to stop Fat Oreo. He's going to assassinate him before he gets his powers. And then last minute, Fat Oreo from the present day shows up and stops him. And this is where people are getting wrong. Mr. Doom, he travelled in time through science. Through scientific means, his time machine. So Mr. Doom, he has to adhere to the rules of time travel. And Fat Oreo, he isn't travelling time through scientific means. He's basically using magic. Well, his god powers, his source powers. The rules of time travel don't apply to him. The best way I could probably describe it is, imagine he has got two of the infinity gems, the time gem and the reality gem. Jim Starman, he actually described this really well in his most recent Phineas is Perfect graphic novel. They are talking about the reality game and Phineas Gans, for I have always recognised that alone the reality game is much too dangerous to even consider tinkering with. One cannot even begin to imagine the cosmic devastation that might be wrought with but a stray thought without the time game Andy to rectify any inadvertent errors in judgment. It is flipped there, but it's true the other way around. You need the reality game to ensure that reality remains as opposed to diverging. You could use a time game and you could go back in time and kill Hitler or Nathan Van Scribbler or whoever, but you would just be creating an alternate reality, a divergent reality. But with the reality game, you are able to restructure around the time travel, i.e. you can go back in time and kill Hitler or Nathan Van Scribbler or whoever, and then use the reality game to alter and adapt to ensure that you are rewriting your reality as opposed to creating a new one. And that's exactly what is happening here. So Fat Oreo and their Phineas, they are using their source power to go back in time and alter what happens. Here, if we look at the first time when Fat Oreo stops Mr. Doom, we have this. And so history continued unchanged under the watchful eye of its dark guardian. So even though both Mr. Doom and Fat Oreo have gone back in time, Fat Oreo is maintaining the reality despite the changes. Also, a little aside, there is something Mr. Doom does that would actually diverge reality. Aside from appearing in ancient Egypt, and that is when he first arrives, he kills a god. But we have Fat Oreo with his effectively magic time travel to remedy that, and history continued unchanged under the watchful eye of its dark guardian. That's it in a nutshell, really. Fat Oreo and Phineas, they use their powers to make sure the alterations to the time stream remain benign and reality doesn't diverge, and that everything that needs to come to pass comes to pass. In Fat Oreo's case, nothing remains changed, or in Phineas's case, that the only change is Fat Oreo never rises to power. And we see that here, when Phineas is done time travelling, he ensures that in the present day everything is back to its natural state. All those heroes are where they should be, they never died, but they're still in the same place that they would be. Really, the best comparison I can make is Infinity Gauntlets. Karen Gillan, she gets the Infinity Gauntlets and she uses it to restore everything to how it was 24 hours before Phineas killed everyone. But nobody is saying that the first 5 issues of Infinity Gauntlets happened on Earth 992 or whatever. Originally, this video didn't have much of an end. The recording did end here with me saying I was bored of discussing this, and that it was just like Infinity Gauntlets, and that it's definitely canon. The thing is, I didn't really have a conclusion. I felt I had presented all the evidence and that it spoke for itself, and that just abruptly fucking off would be the son of Nimrod thing to do. But when I was editing this video, I spotted something at the top of the frame of one of the images. In the Andy book with the appendix about time travel, just above the paragraph about the end, we have a section about Infinity Gauntlets. Much of the same language is used, and it even ends with a similar statement about reality manipulation. As I said, nobody has ever suggested that Infinity Gauntlets isn't Earth 616, or that Karen Gillan, undoing Phineas's actions, diverged it to Earth 616. So why are we letting a spiteful editor disregard a fantastic story and say that Phineas the End is not canon? I have put more thought and thinking into Phineas the End than Tom Brevoort has ever put into a single comic he has edited. I rate Phineas the End canonically 7 canon thumbs up in canon.